across the line. Unbelievable. That's how close he was. I mean, it was crazy enough, obviously, what happened that day. Can you imagine in Parc Fermé if the third driver had turned up and it had been Yuki Tsunoda? Everyone, like, just another element. It so nearly was. That is Kimi Antonelli going deep at the chicane.
So I often wonder when you're in such an intense battle at the front and you're fighting for a win. As we saw, you know, the McLarens as well at Silverstone. Okay, it was dialed down at the end of the penalty, but then you get to the end, you're like, hang on, what? Hulkenberg's here. How is he pulling up? And you think, what on earth has happened back there for someone to come from 19th to finish third?
Amazing, given that you can be locked in. Sometimes you have the drivers effectively joining us in the commentary box, don't you? Like watching the screens. And when Verstappen was dominating in 2023, he'd often know as much about their race in the cool-down room as his own.
It's the classic, especially on a circuit like this where you've got long straights. If you're not in the thick of battle looking in your mirrors or ahead on the overtake button, you are looking at this big screen behind you there. You get a pretty good shot from some of these angles. It really depends what's being covered.
All right, talking of a good shot, we're about to send Oscar Piastri in the direction of Alex Brundle.
There he comes then, Oscar Piastri on the last of these quali sims. Hiking skills and negotiation skills have been employed to get to the top of Radion here. As we see Franco Colapinto come through. A couple of noticeable things as we've climbed up the hill a little bit. I think there was a lot of new plank stuff going on at the beginning of the session because the touching of the floor has reduced a lot. So either teams reacting relatively quickly and lifting the cars up, or indeed planks just wearing away and finding their level a little bit. Yeah, I just want to give you a sense of the scale of it, really. 22 seconds from down there at La Source, all the way up, of course, through turn 3, turn 4, and then up towards turn 5 at Les Combes. And Fernando Alonso heading through there right now. This is that first sector that's all about power and where we get a real sense of who's got a slippery setup on the car. And then, of course, you descend all down through the middle sector there and return back to La Source again. Great vantage point here at the top of Eau Rouge. I'll let you enjoy these quali sims.
Thank you very much, Alex. Oscar Piastri, as you would expect, having bolted on the soft tyre. The team that have produced a car competitive at so many circuits, only off the podium once all year. Back in Canada, and they were colliding. Lando Norris into the back of Oscar Piastri, and Piastri goes over the line. He's on a 1:42.1.
So he's just found 2 seconds on his previous best lap. And that is one of the great feelings driving a Formula 1 car, where you just feel grip underneath you. And let's see that from Max's perspective here then. On board with the Dutchman, and you can see he's already a chunk, nearly 4/10 up on Oscar in the first sector. Now we're into the grip limited sector. All the corners down here, Rivage, downhill right-hander, Speaker's corner, and now the big descent towards Pouhon. Let's ride on board. Oh, blend out of the throttle and quickly back to it. Not even a full lift there for Max. And this is a car that's a bit lower on downforce than the McLaren. This is the sequence I really like. Then you flash through Pouhon, sweep it right and left through Fagna, bring it back to the left for Stavolo, and now stamp on the throttle, and you're going to run all the way up. So there's the time loss for Verstappen in the middle part of the lap. But let's see how much he can gain, because this is now all flat out, and we'll see if the Red Bull on the straight line and top speed, as he builds up beyond 200 miles per hour, can pull it back.
He has been utterly dominant when it comes to one-lap pace, and then had to fight his way through in recent years. Last year couldn't do it. You see half a second difference between Oscar Piastri and Max Verstappen. He made some time up, not enough in Sector 3.
But that is the perfect demonstration of the state of play right now. Fastest in the first and third sector, Verstappen. Fastest in the middle sector, Piastri. It is the classic Spa trade-off. The low downforce will make Max very, very raceable, even if he starts on the front row. The starter is difficult from pole as it is, but when you've got a Red Bull that's got that straight line speed advantage, it would be difficult for a car ahead to hold him off. Let's see Leclerc then through this final sector as well. He's got a couple of cars just ahead of him, just Piastri and Tsunoda, which might give him a bit of a tow and a bit of a hand down towards the bus stop as well.
Only driver on the front row so far this year not to take a pole position, something he did back in 2019 around this circuit. Sainz has improved up to 5th position. Leclerc will want more than that as he comes across the line. He goes into 3rd, but the gap is 0.8 of a second.
So he's matched Verstappen in the middle sector, but he's not as quick as the Red Bull in the 1st or the 3rd, and that was with a bit of a slipstream as well. Antonelli now does the quickest final sector as
weaving where you can. Some weaving where you can.
Robbie, you told me no weaving.
No weaving, sorry, no weaving. We're good, my bad.
No worries.
Instruction to weave. Instruction to weave removed. And he wasn't going, hold on a minute, he told me to do the opposite thing.
Still, yeah, weird for me. It's can't really get the rotation. It's almost like I'm reeling as well.
Not what Red Bull want to hear. What Verstappen wants to say. This is Lando Norris, 8 points back in the Formula 1 World Championship on the soft tyre. Personal best, Sector 1, Sector 2. George Russell has just gone 2nd fastest on a medium tyre. Verstappen is 3rd on a Red Bull soft, and Lando Norris comes over the line, and he's gone into 10th. We had a momentary yellow flag.
Yeah, Norris bailing out of it in the final sector, or maybe making a big mistake coming out of Stavolo or something there to lose a heap of time. It was 0.3 down on Piastri in the middle sector. This is going to be the mistake then at Stavolo. So final sector. Yeah, he's lost it. He's lost it on the run, and that's the problem. You get punished for it all the way down that straight. So it looked like he was still pushing, but the time wasn't there because you're having to wait for the throttle. Now you can pick it up, and you're taking that loss for about 2 kilometres down to the bus stop.
Oliver Behrman, same corner. Oliver, who had an excellent one-lap performance at Silverstone, but had that penalty for a red flag infringement, and he took way more of the gravel trap than his countryman.
Piastri's lap is big. It's a really fast lap that he's put in. And it's the middle sector where he's just mighty. I mean, we saw it, the difference with Verstappen through the lap, but he's even got a good march on his teammate there. And Lando's then dropped it in the final part of that sector, but really in towards the final sector for Lando. And we were speaking before about Oscar sometimes building up to race weekends, and on a conventional weekend you'll so often see Lando top in FP1 and looking more comfortable, and then Oscar will be there and get there for Q3. But when he needs to turn it on a sprint weekend, we've seen him do it many times as well, and he has hit the ground running here.
Yeah, Chase Lewis Hamilton home for the win. Very, very close here last year for what turned out to be the win after the disqualification of George Russell. Lando Norris, personal best around this circuit. Consider he started in Formula 1 in 2019, P5. Circuits like Imola, where he's always featured at the sharp end, even when McLaren haven't been hugely competitive. You think of Austria, where he's always been absolutely excellent. Spa, best P5, despite the cars that he's had.
Yeah, I think we're into a run of circuits that you can tell from previous history one McLaren driver has really excelled on. And Austria, as you say, has been such a Norris track ever since he's been there. Even in the junior category, he's been very good. Budapest next weekend is a real Norris track. He's always been strong there. I know Piastri won the race last year, but Lando was on pole with a bit of a margin, and then they sort of settled into that formation until the end. But this one is a Piastri track, and Oscar's form around here has always been really strong in Formula 1. He's always looked like he's had the upper edge on Lando as well. So it's carried on for this first practice session.
Looking to interrupt his teammates' momentum. Lando Norris trying to win his 3rd Grand Prix in a row, something he's not done in the entirety of his Formula 1 career, something that Piastri did back earlier in the campaign. And he built up a points buffer, lead for Piastri, lowest level since we left the Monaco Grand Prix. It's 3 points between them, and we are visor cam across the line, heading to the hairpin. That begins the lap.
Squeezing on the gas, he'll find a little bit of a slipstream down towards Eau Rouge, and it should still be comfortably flat out for Piastri. And it is. Easy work behind the wheel, and he'll take this slipstream actually all the way up the hill. Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin. Will he jump out of the way? He does. That is peachy for Piastri. Second flying lap on a soft tyre, and that's the difference there. 2/10 that he's gained on his previous best.
Unbelievable timing for Oscar Piastri. Max Verstappen is the car in the left-hand side of your picture. He's currently the fastest driver and the World Championship leader. He finds himself dropping down the hill now, and Verstappen's first sector superb as he makes his way to Les Combes. And now on to Malmedy corner, top left. We've gone through Pouhon corner with Piastri trying to lower the time, and he'll need to because Verstappen is flying. He's into the part of the circuit that his car isn't quite adapted to. And remember, he got 0.2 of a second back in the third sector in comparison to Piastri at the previous lap, as we see. The driver born in Melbourne, improving on his time by the margin that he had in the first sector, pushing on again on the same set of tyres. We have visor cam to the end of the lap.
10.5 up on his previous best. You can see that on the top right of the dash there. And that is what the driver is looking at all the way around the lap in between the corners. Just look down. Is it good? Yes, it is at the moment. But is it still good as we squirm out of the final corner and use the last of the traction? It is. It's 1/10 better than the previous lap for Piastri. That's pretty much the slipstream he had, or not even. The slipstream was a bit more than that. But what about Verstappen? Has he found something on his lap? It's better across the first two sectors.
So let's see. He was 0.4 down middle part of the lap, got a minor slipstream from George Russell, and the gap is 0.4 of a second. So Verstappen still struggling with the rotation in the middle part of the lap. The gap's 0.4. It's not quite the gargantuan margin of before, but Piastri's topped by a big gap. Consider that's the only practice session they'll get all weekend.
And Norris improved as well, but is half a second down on his teammate. Found the time in the second and third sector where he didn't run off the road. Verstappen's still 9/10 down on Piastri in that middle sector. The trade-off is just so... We saw it with the ghost car. It was so nice to see the difference with that ghost car feature that we showed before the race in Silverstone. The difference of Verstappen accelerating down the straights, Piastri catching him up in the corners. Looks like it's even more from what we've seen in this practice session.
Antonelli with the fastest final sector of anyone so far, so going for a similar approach. Driver and engineer having to work together to get that trade-off of setup to work around this, the longest circuit of the Formula One calendar. Lando Norris, you can see the gap there. Half a second to his teammate. Bit of flow viz on the back of the car as well. Our most recent winner of the Grand Prix. Back at Silverstone, said it was a dream to win his home race. Didn't know how it was going to feel like, but he loved every single moment, including a slightly awkward one when we found he was hit on the nose. And he's got a little scar on his nose that he says just reminds him of winning the British Grand Prix. Pretty decent reminder when something doesn't quite go to plan. It's about the only thing that didn't go to plan for 2 Sundays back when it comes to Lando Norris. And McLaren getting back-to-back 1-2s for the first time since 2010. A long journey back to the front in Formula One, but they are competitive everywhere they go. As the practice starts are completed, you see Hulkenberg in your picture as well. He was saying in the press conference how nice it was to be able to have a couple of weeks off to enjoy his achievement. Never has to hear about the podium stat ever again. Gets to stare at his Lego trophy and smile, and lovely scenes on social media as well. And his daughter watching that moment and celebrating with the family when he returned home. This is Oscar Piastri, fastest by 0.4 of a second. It's a 1:42.022. The man who will want to line up right about there when it comes to Sunday. We've of course got the sprint format as well, so we're into sprint qualifying later on today. Just watching Piastri's start out of the window. Lovely launch off the line. The driver determined to interrupt the momentum of his teammate. Competitive for the win in Austria. Missed out. Brilliant battle between the two of them. Controversial penalty at Silverstone. It's just 8 points between them. That is it for practice. Absolutely flown by. Let's confirm the order. The 20 drivers ahead of sprint qualifying later on. So the hour of practice is done. Oscar Piastri in the 1:42.022 is fastest. Max Verstappen complaining about the rotation of the car, rapid in a straight line, and trying to hang on to it when it comes to the technical section of the infield of this circuit. Then it's Norris, Russell, Leclerc and Antonelli. Lewis Hamilton is in 7th, and then it's Lance Stroll, who had a slow start to his session, and then he was out ahead of Fernando Alonso. Isaac Hadjar completing the top 10. Then it's Carlos Sainz, who also had an issue in restricted running. He lost half of his session with a fuel issue. And then it was Alex Albon ahead of Gabriel Bortoleto. Hulkenberg in 14th. Then Liam Lawson, P15. It's Ocon ahead of Gasly. And then Tsunoda, Colapinto and Oliver Behrman complete the field. Well, it's a great start for the man who's trying to stop his teammate, winning 3 Grand Prix in a row. It is Oscar Piastri top as we head into sprint qualifying. Later on, let's send it to the paddock with Laura and Lawrence.
Thank you so much, Alex Jakes. That was FP1. Not many paddocks when you get that kind of vantage point of one of the greatest pieces of racetrack in all of our sport. Lawrence Beretta and I very much enjoying the vantage point from up here. And what a session that was. Oscar Piastri, 4/10 over Max Verstappen, who's a 10th or so ahead of Lando Norris. The top 3 we expected in that order, though.